there was a California Senate primary debate on Monday. The California primary is what they call a jungle primary. In other words, it is both Democratic and Republican, and I would imagine some other parties go in, and the two winners of that primary then go to the general election. Barbara Lee is running. She is one of the top Democratic Senate candidates. The other two are Adam Schiff and Katie Porter.
And those two are ahead of the pack by a significant margin.
Are ahead of Barbara Lee as well.
And the Republican whose name escapes me.
Now, Barbara Lee...
Former Los Angeles Dodger Steve Garvey.
Right, exactly. And he is number 2, I guess. And so it's right now in the polling, Adam Schiff, Steve Garvey, Katie Porter.
I meant top 2 Barbara Democrats. Lee. Sorry about that.
And but again, jungle primary, 2 people get elected. It's going to be Garvey and it's going to be Schiff if the polling holds where it is now. I don't know that it will. You'll remember that Barbara Lee is the only person who voted against the authorization to go to war in the House in the wake of 9/11. Here she is calling for a ceasefire, the only one of the Democratic Senate candidates in California.
Member Lee, on October 8th, less than 24 hours after that attack, you called for an immediate ceasefire. If that happens now, if there is an immediate ceasefire, what's to stop Hamas from retaking control and launching another October 7th?
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, I called for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire. Israel deserves to live in peace with security, free from Hamas and all terrorist attacks. And I'm going to continue to condemn the horrific attacks of October 7th and work to make sure that whatever I can do to ensure that the administration, as it continues this war in Gaza that has killed now 25,000 people, that is counterproductive to Israel's security. The only way Israel is going to be secure is through a permanent ceasefire. The only way that is going to happen is with a political and diplomatic solution. The path to peace and to a secure Israel and a secure state for the Palestinians, with yes, I do believe we have to see the end game, and it should be a 2-state solution. Killing 25,000 civilians, it's catastrophic, and it will never lead to peace for the Israelis nor the Palestinians.
Congressman Schiff, you have not called for a ceasefire. Why do you think that Congresswoman Lee is wrong?
Well, first of all, I go back to October 7th, to the brutal murder of 1,200 people. And not just murder, but rape and torture. The magnitude of that horror is still shocking to me. No country, after having been attacked by terrorists like Israel was on October 7th, no country could refuse to defend itself. It has a duty to defend itself, and I think the United States should support Israel in defending itself. We also should work with Israel to reduce the number of civilian casualties, and my heart breaks for all the Palestinians who have lost lives, all the families that have lost lives. It's not, in my view, incompatible with human nature to grieve the loss of both innocent Palestinians as well as innocent Israelis. I support a 2-state solution. We have to get back to a road to a 2-state solution, but Israel has to defend itself. We can't leave Hamas governing Gaza. They're still holding over 100 hostages, including Americans. I don't know how you can ask any nation to cease fire when their people are being held by a terrorist organization.
And the rebuttal to Congresswoman Lee, how do you?
Well, let me just say, first of all, I voted against the authorization to use military force right after the horrific attacks of 9/11. I voted against the Iraq authorization. I said then, and I'm saying now, it could spiral out of control. You see what's happening. It's escalating in the region. We have to make sure that our national security is also protected. And in fact, as this war escalates, as the Arab nations pull back, then what do we have? We do not have a path to Israel's security, nor do we have a path to a Palestinian state. It will spiral out of control like I said it did and would after 2001, and it did.
Congressman.
And I just want to say, Katie Porter also answered at one point and keeps doing this thing saying ceasefire is not a magic word. That was her response.
Get out of here.
We don't. I mean,
ceasefire is not a magic word, but it is an example of what the. It's also not like some type of like taboo word.
Yeah, exactly.
That is going to bring about Jumanji is going to show up or something.
Right, you're not saying Beetlejuice 3 times.
Yeah, I mean the point is not that the United States has not been able to stop Israel's assault on Gaza. The point is that the United States has not tried to stop Israel's assault on Gaza. And
facilitating it.
And are in fact facilitating it. And ceasefire is not a magic word, but it does create pressure on the administration to stop facilitating it.
I actually thought that Barbara Lee was further down the polls, so I just want to correct myself a little bit because it was maybe earlier polling I had in my mind. Politico's most recent one, but it's still from December, has Schiff ahead by a ton. 28%, Garvey at 19, Katie Porter 17, Barbara Lee 14. The problem is that Barbara Lee and Katie Porter are cannibalizing one another.
Yeah, shame on Katie Porter. The logic,
yeah.
Barbara Lee's exactly right about the logic. Particularly shame on Katie Porter going to Israel last year and saying, "Oh, look at how LGBT friendly it is." But
gay marriage not legal there, by the way.
Yeah, and I forgot what I was going to say about Lee, but yeah, the Schiff's to.
Well, no, Barbara Lee has a track record. She's a deeply moral person on this, but unfortunately, I think her age is getting in the way with voters.
Right.
The cycle of violence is exactly right, though, because Schiff will say, well, look at what happened on October 7th. So many people, the magnitude of which I can't even really quantify yet, and Israel has to defend itself. But there's no admission that okay, what are Palestinians going to feel like when they see their entire city destroyed and 20,000 people killed? Like, they're going to want to defend themselves, too. And what you have just outlined is a cycle of violence.
Yeah.
That's the point, is that there is this sort of in this response, they take it out of the realm of morality in terms of the absolute wholesale slaughter of Palestinian civilians. They take it out of the realm of morality and just try and make it a practical question. Israel must defend itself, which in and of itself is not a hugely controversial statement that a country, at least generically, has the right to defend itself. The problem is twofold. One, Israel doesn't technically have a right to defend itself against the Palestinians because they're occupying the territory. That's just from a technical standpoint in terms of international law. But as a practical matter, it has failed. Every once in a while, we go in and obliterate the Palestinians living in Gaza. This strategy has not worked.